Welcome to Founder Unboxed, a podcast about the humanness of entrepreneurship, the quirks, the chaos, the quiet moments that make a founder who they really are. I'm your host, Kabeer Lal. My guest today is Tanvi Dhamija, founder of Cinemon, a brand consulting firm that was born in July 2020 with one simple belief: stories sell, but authenticity sustains. From her early years in Ambala to the corporate towers of Citibank, and now her own venture, Tanvi's journey is one of identity, purpose, and intentional choices. She's an MBA from Nirma University, a Times of India Youth for Change honoree, and someone who lives between two worlds, balancing brand strategy in Gurguram with slow mornings at her family farm in Ambala. Entrepreneurship runs deep in her blood. Her parents, her brother were business owners. Her Dadaji served as an MLA, and Nana worked with UNICEF WHO as a vaccinologist and scientist. But Cinemon? That's her own story written from scratch. So let's begin. Welcome, Tanvi. Welcome to Founders Unboxed.
Thank you, Kabeer. It's a pleasure.
It's great to have you over here. And of course, there's so much to know about you, so much to learn about you. But let's begin with talk about what kind of a kid were you while growing up?
I was a shy kid. Contrary to popular belief, I was really shy. Till about 5th grade, I don't think people really heard much of my voice. And I wasn't a very participative child. And we did not have those midterm and end-term examinations. We just had unit tests. So I wasn't even sure how I was academically. So that's me.
And what about some of the early influences? Was it family? I mean, you had illustrious people in your family. Was it maybe some political figures, or were they actually teachers? I mean, who influenced you in the beginning?
I've actually had a very privileged and diverse family. On my father's side, my grandfather was the MLA of Ambala, and he was an active politician till the end of his days. Wow. My grandmother, maternal grandmother, my dadi, she came from a pre-partition illustrious finance family, and she was a very strong woman. Had 8 children, was taking care of an extended family of my grandfather, come here, set a new life for herself post-partition. Very, very strong woman. My Nana and Nani, on the other hand, my maternal grandparents, my Nanu was a microbiologist and a vaccinologist, a scientist. He was with the ICMR and WHO and UNICEF, traveled the world, right from, Italy to Japan to even North Korea for his work assignments.
Wow.
And my Nani, she was actually an MA in English in her time, back in that time when this was, far and few. Yeah. And she was a poetess, a musician, a singer, and a formidable woman. So I feel that these have been such great influences because I genuinely believe that grandparents and grandchildren, their lives kind of mesh. And if children grow around their grandparents, they just grow with a lot of more love and a lot of culture and family and tradition ingrained in them. And I've been fortunate enough to have spent a lot of my formative years with both set of grandparents.
Yeah, we are lucky in India that we have families that we can kind of be proud of.
Absolutely.
Grandparents and parents, of course, they have a lot of influence on the kids. And
I've actually seen both crosses. One side, which is a huge family. So if there were 8 children, my father having 7 siblings, we were 19 first grandchildren.
Wow.
And then a huge extended family back in Ambala and also all across North India. So I've seen that side also, when you have this absolutely big house, always full of people. And I've also seen one on the side of my maternal grandparents where it was just my mom and my mamu, and we're just 3 grandchildren. So a more nuclear and a smaller family unit. And I think I've enjoyed both sides.
So post your, MBA, you decided to go into a job. Now, with the influence of a business family, what made you go into a corporate career and not your own business?
So this is a very interesting story and fairly formative. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. They met during their MBA, and they fell in love. They come from different backgrounds, different castes, different families, and they have this beautiful MBA time love story. When I was pursuing my MBA, I just kind of knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did not really have much of an appeal to do a corporate job. And I remember having a conversation with my father one day before the placement term kind of began. And I told him, I said, you know what, I think I need to set up my own business after this, and let's chat about it. And my dad, this has been one of the very few instances in my life where my father's actually kind of put a foot down on a decision that I wanted to take. And he said to me that I would not advise that, and I'm not going to encourage it. And I think it's essential for you to work for 5 years, make a network, be professional, learn humility, learn a lot of organization and work somewhere. And after 5 years, if you want to start your own business, I'm going to very happily support it and help you in whatever way I can. And that was pretty much how I got into the corporate domain.
And the influence of your father and, of course, the other parts of the family, how did it shape the concepts of risk, ambition, and security? Because, a lot of times what happens is that as business families or as maybe, job families or government servant families, these three things are hugely or vastly different. How was it working for you? Because you had both influences on you.
I did.
Yeah.
And ambition, I think I carried it very innately. I always wanted to work, and I wanted to do good work. I also wanted to do work that brought with it some sense of glory at whatever level it might be. And because my mother's always been working, today it's so common to have working mothers, and you feel proud of women working. They're contributing so importantly to households. Back then, there were fewer women. It would primarily be someone who's a teacher or maybe a doctor. Those are the two most common professions that women really went into. My mother was a business owner, and we, while we never felt her absence as kids, we did grow up to a great degree with a nanny. And I remember this one childhood conversation with my mom where she asked me, "Do you miss your mother?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I must be 9th grade." I said, "I do, but if I want to work one day, then how can I complain today?"
Yeah.
And I guess maybe just seeing your mother work, just understanding that as much as she loves you, you're not enough.
Yeah.
She also has a sense of identity of her own. Really, really shaped how I maybe perceived my future as a working professional, or just the course of my life in the future.
Yeah, no, having that role model is actually wonderful for girls to, grow up into businesswomen or...
Yeah, I'm actually quite a therapist to working moms who go through, the guilt. Because I tell them that if you look at me and my brother, and if we turned out fine, your kids are going to be fine.
And you work yourself currently with a lot of entrepreneurs and maybe a lot of women entrepreneurs as well. Right?
Yes.
So tell me, when you joined Citibank, that was your first job, right?
Yes.
So how were those years when you were with a company, a large company? How did that work out for you? And what were your learnings from those 5 years?
Citi is a great organization. I was so blessed that I got an opportunity to start a career with an illustrious organization like Citi. I mean, when I joined, second year into it, Citi was already celebrating 200 years of its existence.
Wow.
So, and it had great culture. I say had because it's pretty much an end of era that Citi is not in India in the form that it was in terms of the retail space.
Correct.
For me, I went into work right after academics. So I really did not even, back then even internships weren't that strong. I did one in Bombay with HSBC, but I don't think that's enough to really understand how you are expected to conduct yourself when you start working. And it felt like I got thrown into the deep sea.
Yeah.
However, having said that, Citi was an organization of very intelligent and bright people, because they picked the best of the best. Even when they came to my college, they came just on day zero to pick, whoever they felt was the best of the lot. And to be surrounded by such accomplished individuals of different age groups. So you also realize that you've got to push yourself.
Correct.
When you come from a good institution, what happens is that you've been successful through your academics, you move from one success to another, and then you come into the working world, everything is very different.
But everybody's intelligent.
Everybody's intelligent, and there are appraisals, and there's a different kind of examination that's happening out there, and there's a different way in which there's no teacher really coming in there and giving you all of this academia to go through and to prepare yourself. And it took me a while to really find my footing there. I was always grateful for that opportunity. I knew I was in the right place, but I wasn't really sure where I was going. And there was this town hall that our business head, Muge Yuzak, she was a Turkish woman, she conducted. And I just ended up, walking into that town hall. And she said one thing that stayed with me. It's really, really shaped the way I am today as a professional. And I say this to my team also. She said, you come into this after having such a great academic record. You've got to understand it's not about you. It's about the work at hand. So please do not get personal. Do not take things personally. It's actually at the end of the day just about the work getting done in a particular manner.
True.
And I felt it was simple but so profound. And that's when I kind of stopped taking myself a little seriously. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's learn, let's adapt to this environment. And it was a brilliant time because this was a time when online was kind of breaking through. So we had online and brick and mortar, and no one really knew where the retail landscape is going to go.
What year was this? What year did you finish your...
This was 2011.
11.
I was with Citi from 11 to 16.
16.
And I was working with the credit cards product in the branding and strategic partnerships team. And we were responsible for bringing in all of the enhanced value proposition on credit cards. So case in point, the EMI proposition started around that time by Citi. The reward point proposition, where you would get these 10x reward points, the cashback campaigns, the dining privileges, all of those discounts you got on dining and shopping was exactly what our team did. And a lot of those proposition-based innovations came in around that time. So it was actually such a brilliant time. And because the Indian landscape in terms of retail was changing, you had a wave of new founders that had made these internet companies, e-commerce companies rather. You had everyone from a Groupon to a Make My Trip to a Jabong back in those days, kind of coming in, making their space. And we got the privilege of interacting with these founders, these brilliant minds who had such grit and vision. And that was my time at Citi.
So at what point and what moment did you decide, KR, okay, this is the right time. I got to start and do something on my own?
When the clock ticked to 5 years, I was like,
You had that number in your mind.
Of course. I was very clear about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I maybe never really carried the charm of wanting that cabin or wanting that designation. It did not appeal to me.
So you were there for a purpose, and the purpose ended at the 5-year mark.
I don't think that my existence there was very purposeful. I think I was working, I was learning, I was very happy to absorb everything that I was. I was growing as an individual and as a professional. And that was pretty much it. I met some really wonderful people who are still in my life and who guided me through later parts of my professional journey and even personal. And that's pretty much how I would sum that journey.
So let's go back to 2016 and 5 years done. You decided, okay, now I got to set up my own business. So tell me about those days. What were the thoughts? What was the business that you started, and how did you get going?
So back in 2016, I started an enterprise called India Wale. It was a social enterprise. So we worked with artisans to reinvent and revive handicrafts. Now it's really common, but back then there were fewer homegrown brands that were doing it. And
so what got you excited and interested in handicrafts?
I've always been creative, and I wanted to nurture that creative side of my personality in an everyday fashion. I also felt that technology was important, and the idea of impact. I've always believed that when you're putting in so many hours of your day, your energy, and in fact you're giving away your youth to your days of working, it would be good if on the side you're managing to create some impact in people's lives. And that pretty much all of that got together, and India Wale was founded back in 2016. And
was there any financial help from, let's say, family or parents or spouse? Or what was the early days like? Obviously, it takes time to start making money, I'm assuming. And how did it feel like when the days you were not making money or the days you made a lot of money? What was it like in those days?
So there was no financial help from anyone, but I'd worked enough and I'd worked with a lot of the startups, as a client or as a partner in Citi, to understand that I needed to save up for those first 3 years at least. So that bit I had taken care of for myself. Was it a great time? No. I don't think that in my life I have ever witnessed failure before my time with India Wale.
Welcome to entrepreneurship.
Yes. Was it crucial? For sure.
Yeah.
I think everything I managed to do now has come in from the things that I've learned. I just look back at that time, and beyond anything that I've learned, which has shaped me now, I'm just glad that I was able to create an impact, a real monetary impact in the lives of some of our artisans. For example, one of our artisans, Imran Bhai, had a chota sa karkhana in Khurja when we found him. But he had an enterprising mind, and he was willing to experiment.
Okay.
And in those 3 years that we worked with him, he ended up opening 3 factories.
Wow.
So I have this lovely photo with him, visiting him in his factory and him hosting me. And even when I set up my next business, and we wanted to do a round of gifting, but of course we couldn't be very extravagant.
Correct.
He actually made all those gifts himself and gave it to me for free, so that
So tell me, in the early days, did you ever feel like giving up, and what really pulled you through? Because your businesses carried on for 4 years, the first business, or 4 or 5 years? 4 years.
Yeah, about 4.
And so what carried you through in those 4 years? Because I'm sure there were a lot of failures, even, all through the way.
For sure. I don't know how people can be in a never give up, never say die kind of attitude. I want to meet these people. I want them to pharaoh their hand on my head because I don't think that I can really be that consistent with my motivation. I think even now and back then, there are days when you feel like giving up. There are days when you're overwhelmed. More than giving up, you're overwhelmed. However, I also think that that sometimes you just got to breathe through all of these moments. Back then, I had a lot of days where, more than giving up, I just questioned if this path is right, if my strategies are right. Does my approach need to evolve? Do I know enough? It was more about that introspection than really saying that, oh, I can't do this.
So what was the transition like from India Wale to Cinemon? And was it driven by COVID, or how did you transition?
I'll tell you what, there was this quote that a business acquaintance said to me when I stepped into Cinemon. And he said, you know what, Tanvi, I look at you and something my mentor said to me comes to me. So it's a quote of a quote. He said that sometimes you choose a profession and you struggle your life through it. The real magic happens when the profession chooses you.
Beautiful.
And he said, I look at you and I think now you're in the right space. How it happened was that I was obviously not very happy with how India Wale was. And I think when you leave behind a very successful corporate career and you're getting elevated to a more national position and a great pay master as City, you have to bring about a lot of lifestyle changes also when you step into entrepreneurship. Those first few years, which we call hustle now, it's a fancier word, but actually that time requires you to make a lot of sacrifice and a lot of decisions which you just wonder that, wow, maybe if I would have just treaded the path I was on, I wouldn't have even had these as considerations in my mind.
Very true.
So for me, I was mulling over the fact that whether this really works for me. And I was deeply unhappy doing it. It's so important for us to realize where our gifts lie. And even if we've not been able to figure that out, we've not been able to do that self-work, it's also important to understand what you're not good at. And I don't think I was really great at it. I don't think I felt very happy whenever we got a big order also, whether it was a corporate order or something to do an export or any retail tie-up also. It never made me happy beyond just that momentary 1 hour or so. And I just didn't feel very intellectual with what I was doing. I don't think I realized that I could be really great at it because I didn't have formal education in it. I hadn't worked in that space. A lot of those factors were really building up in my mind. And the effort versus reward wasn't working out. And
so when did you realize that this current industry you're in, that chose you?
I think I had a nagging voice in my head all through. Maybe after a few months into it, I just had that nagging voice which said, open your eyes, open your eyes.
This is what you need to do.
Yeah, but you attach such a sense of pride to things that you create, right? And we live in a world where it's like, log kya kahenge? And you leave behind something and this is the choice you make and that choice bombed in your face. You're also very conscious about how do you go about answering to the world and that sense of failure you feel in yourself. So I was feeling those emotions, and uncannily, again, my dad plays a role in this story. He one day said to me, we were just sitting watching TV, and he's like, "Beta, you need to stop selling products. You have to sell ideas." I kid you not, exactly like this. And I just thought to myself, what an idea, Sergi. Sometimes some people say some things to you, they just stick.
Correct.
And I was kind of mulling over it, and COVID came. And everybody was in this panic mode, and especially people who just started an enterprise, they were like shutting it down because we were living in unprecedented times. We didn't know what's going to happen. And I was like, "Band kar do. Just, is behti ganga mein haath de do, band kar do. This is the right time. Just ride the wave and sail through it." So I shut it without really knowing what I'm going to do further.
What's next? Yeah.
There was no pressure because nobody in this world knew what's really going to happen. And we were quarantined. We were all locked in. So there was no pressure to really go out there on an everyday basis also. So that kind of worked in my favor.
So in the current space you're in, how do you see Cinemon and your company being different from other people in the same space?
So I stumbled into Cinemon also by accident. I just got a phone call one day by someone who'd seen me do one of those webinars at the time of COVID, because I had time. And I was very certain that this time I want to do something that I have an experience in. So I wasn't sure what kind of enterprise I wanted to set up, but I said, you know what, let me just put my CV out there, go out in the world, and maybe work again. And then we'll figure out, now that I've put that conscious thought out there, it's going to show up in some form or the other. And I remember doing this one webinar with you and a bunch of webinars with someone else, and somebody I knew from business. He reached out to me and he said, you know what, I saw you on one of those webinars, and why don't you create a digital profile for us?
Wow.
So Cinemon pretty much started as a graphic design
So you can
agency.
thank me for...
For sure, Kabeer. I thank you for so much more than that in my life.
I'm just kidding. Now, also, tell me about something that you believe in about your business and industry, which you know other people in your industry don't have that belief. Is there something like that?
I'm not sure what others believe in, and they don't. I really, really do not look at the landscape like this. I feel there's just enough and more work for everybody, and we're in India's golden age. I look at what I'm doing and where I was yesterday, where I'm going to get tomorrow. The one thing that I believe that we do very distinctively is how my team behaves. I believe that I have the power to create the kind of culture I would have wanted, to create the kind of support system and a learning environment that I would have wanted when I was younger. And even when I had one intern, that was exactly the approach I had. So everyone in Cinemon just speaks the same way, and it's not very founder-led. It just comes from somewhere within, because that's really how our culture is. And I feel that aspect plays a huge role in the kind of work we deliver.
So is that, you would say, your superpower, your strength?
I think my superpower is insight. I've been blessed with the gift of insight. I'm an insightful person. So when we're talking offline, or if I'm looking at a client and I'm looking at what they're sharing as their pain area or as their objectives, I try to be I am very insightful through those moments. Or even if I'm watching something on Netflix, I am insight driven. And that is what I bring to the table. That is my contribution, so that I bridge the gap. And that insight kind of also goes into how we manage the team.
So, of course, we got to know about your superpower, but you also got to tell us about what's your blind spot as a founder.
I have no blind spots. I never say that. I will
and that,
not put it in
ladies and gentlemen, is the blind spot.
I'm not going to put it out there in the universe.
No, perfectly okay. So outside of business, what excites you?
Books. I love reading. I love the pursuit of knowledge. I am so hungry to learn, and I feel I know so little. And that really, really excites me. Just taking care of a garden excites me. It's those little things. We do not realize those 5-minute activities that give you the deepest of joys. And it excites me to come to my house and always have fresh flowers.
Wow, beautiful.
In my home. Or just to have the opportunity to travel so greatly, both within India and abroad. So things like these.
So what motivates you or drives you beyond money and success?
I just feel, so I meet people nowadays who come to me and they say they've heard me here or there, or they've had a conversation with me sometime and it's had an impact. it's helped them deal with something or change the trajectory of their next few years. And that really drives me. To be able to make some impact in anyone's life, even in a single life, is good enough for me. But to have people who can borrow strength from your strength,
wonderful,
that drives me a lot.
And this could be a client, it could be a colleague or someone who's part of your team.
A client, a colleague, it's been team members, it's been people. I don't even know, very recently somebody said to me that that she saw the monochrome photo that you took of me all those years ago. And it really inspired her to deal with her inhibitions. And she went in and she got photographed and she showed me those photographs.
Oh, wonderful. Oh,
wonderful. And neither you nor I put it out there in this fashion, or even realized that there could be somebody out there who would look at it.
Get influenced by something like that.
Yeah.
So what are you currently building that really excites you? Something in the company, what are you working on?
So Cinemon is moving on a path which is very purpose-driven. We've had the privilege to do some groundbreaking work for an organization that I'm not at the liberty of naming here. And we did something which is on the concept of purpose branding. So we live in a time where, every decade has these corporate buzzwords. Last decade was diversity and inclusion, and we've seen it become a global movement of sorts, right? And this decade, there are two corporate buzzwords identified as of now. One has been AI. The other has been purpose. So AI, we can see even the washing machine today we use is AI. And we know it's evolving. It's here to stay, not going anywhere. But purpose is something that a lot of the Fortune 500 CEOs have recognized and acknowledged and started to activate as the driver of an organization. So that sense of being, and we've got the opportunity to work on activating purpose in an organization of over 2,000 team members for 2 years and help them win 2 global awards on it. And when we were doing all of this work, I read a lot of stuff, my team researched a lot, and we realized that this is exactly where we want to take Cinemon's work. We want to work with, even if it's a new business or it's a growing MSME or it's a corporate, we want them to approach a more purpose-driven style of branding, and that's really authentic storytelling. It's coming from your heart, and it's going to resonate with people who believe in the same set of things. So that's what we're doing. We're also looking at putting together some knowledge on the industry to help business owners, first generation especially, so working on that, and looking at exploring a lot of international horizons this year.
Wonderful. So is there something that scares you at work, or something you feel, this is a problem area?
I was carrying 2 fears when it comes to work over the past year or so, which I don't want to say. And because it's a bit personal. And both of them, in divine timing, came true on the same day. It's like शेर आया फिर वो आपको आके पकड़ लेता है. And it happened, and I was like, oh my God. But there was a part of me that even knew in that moment that now my true growth is going to begin.
Wonderful.
Because both of these came true. Now there's nothing else to fear. And also a lot of my fears are now unfounded because I created something as India Wale. I loved it, I lost it, and I survived. Yeah. And I managed to stand back on my own 2 feet and build something even more beautiful and meaningful. And I think that, no matter what happens, I will be fine in life.
Wonderful. So talking about building, what's the legacy that you see for Cinemon in the future? What is the impact you feel it'll have for, maybe even when you're not involved with it? Or how do you see that?
It's too soon to tell. However, I do hope that we are able to change something in organizational culture. A lot of our work with clients is also driven around transforming organizational culture. And when I talk to a lot of founders about what are the practices we have internally, and a lot of our work is remotely done. So how do I bring that team together? I hope that people can borrow from that and build a culture internally which is more cohesive, which is positive, and which is also full of a lot of love. And that's what I hope to share with the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tanvi. Thank you for being with us today. So that was Tanvi Dhamija, Unboxed. A founder who doesn't just help brands find their voice, but who spent the last few years finding her own. From the boardrooms of Citibank to the verandas of her family home in Ambala, Tanvi's story is a reminder that clarity often comes with stillness and that entrepreneurship isn't about hustle always. Sometimes it's about intention and intuition. If this conversation resonated with you, share with someone who's keen to build a brand for themselves. And if you haven't yet, hit follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. We've got more founder stories coming your way, each one full of humanness, curiosity, and character. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kabeer Lal, and this is Founder Unboxed.